Fiance M30 called off our wedding a week before and left me F30 in complete confusion. So my ex-fiance M30 has cancelled our F30 wedding a week before it is taking place. We've been together for about 6 years and lived together. For context, what basically happened was an argument that escalated. We were heading to my program graduation. It's a smaller event of about 10 students and some professors from a community college. On that morning, as we were getting ready, I asked if he would be okay to wear one of his button-ups instead of the shirt he had on so we can get a nice photo. He was annoyed and snapped, saying, "Why do I have to do things for others?" And I told him that he truly doesn't have to. I was just asking, but it's ultimately his choice. He ended up putting the button up and we arrived at the ceremony. Everything went fine and he was very happy for me. However, on the way home in the car, traffic was filling up and he was annoyed. I offered an alternative route that I know cuts some time and the exit to that route was coming up. He didn't take it and I was slightly annoyed about it because he was cranky with me about traffic. So I asked why he didn't take it. He started yelling that my tone is rude and that he doesn't have to drive the way I tell him to. I replied saying that I literally just asked and I don't actually care what route he takes. He was the one having a problem with traffic. He blew up and blamed me for getting him upset. When we got home, I apologized and explained that I didn't mean to come across as mean. I also said that screaming doesn't help in any situation and that we should talk instead. He basically explained that an apology doesn't solve anything and that he needs such things to not happen, otherwise he would continue exploding at me because that's the only time I listened to him. After a few hours we spoke again. He apologized for yelling and I apologized for the miscommunication that happened. Despite resolving this, later that night, I was crying due to the fact that he so easily yells at me when he's upset. I was so upset that even on such an important day for me, I felt like he picked fights. And to add to this, yelling is such a red flag for me, and I never do that to him or anyone for that matter. The next morning we were having breakfast and he asked why I seemed gloomy, so I told him that everything's okay, I'm just processing what happened yesterday. He asked me to please share with him, so I told him that I felt like my special day was kind of ruined by fighting about things we could have easily resolved. He immediately just flipped and started getting angry again. He blamed me for the fights, and when I replied that I don't think it's fair to blame me, he got angrier and said that he can't do this, that I'm not a good communicator, and that he cannot get married like this. I was full of shock. I thought he was talking out of emotion like many times before, but this time he actually ended up sending a mass text to some guests to let them know that the wedding is called off. I was flabbergasted at the quickness and so confused. We started arguing and then had to leave for our days. Later that day when we returned, I asked if this is truly something he wants to call everything off, and he responded with a confident yes. What I thought was an action out of anger seemed to be solid for him. For the rest of the night and the next day, I tried to fix things between us. After many hours of talking and lots of crying from my end, he kept explaining that I don't communicate well, and that this cancellation was my fault. I tried to offer some solutions, but he was full on with the decision to cancel and break up. I asked if we could give it another day or two to ensure this is what he wants before we cancel the venue. He declined and asked to cancel the venue and vendors immediately. So we did. The next day, I went on errands and then met with my friend. It was truly such a hard day and I was heartbroken, still digesting this is happening. When I came home, he asked to talk and started crying that he regrets everything he said in the last days. That he didn't mean it. He was angry and didn't think straight. He said he will start therapy and wanted to do couples counseling. Now too, after I offered it many times. Anyway, he apologized profusely and kept asking if we can mend everything or whether he fucked up. I was almost sure this regret would come, and honestly, maybe it was mean, but I said, yeah, you fucked up big time. You made a rash decision that hurt our relationship big time. There's no going back from here." He pretty much begged for another chance, but everything was canceled and my trust was shattered. The wedding's supposed to be in 2 days. His aunt was supposed to be on the way to our house to help us pack decorations, and now, there's no way we can schedule everything again, and frankly, I don't want to at this point. This is not the first time he cancels plans or breaks up with me during a disagreement. Everyone is telling us that this is fixable, that clearly we love each other, so if we want, this situation doesn't have to be the end of the relationship. But I don't understand how. So much time, effort and money has gone into this wedding that's now done, and plus, more importantly, I can't trust him anymore. I don't know what to do at this point. We were supposed to go on our honeymoon right after, so now I'm thinking of going by myself. He asked if we can go together and spend that time fixing things, but I'm just questioning everything. I think I prefer going myself to do some soul searching. Should I call this quits and move on with my life, or take his word and start couples counseling? I love him with my entire heart, and we had many loving experiences between us over the years. We don't have any issues aside from such incidents, but I don't know whether it's actually possible to come back from this one. Thoughts? Advice? Second story. Husband 33M said he would kill me 33F if I cheated on him. Do I need to run? My husband has told me multiple times if you ever cheat on me I'd kill him, kill you, then kill myself. He seemed serious but calm at the time, just like he was stating a fact. When I brought it up later he said it was a joke, but it wasn't said jokingly. I saw it more as a manipulation tactic than an actual threat. He's also mentioned things like how if he didn't have me, he'd have no reason to live, and that he wanted to before we met, and then he didn't because he met me. My question is, for those of you who have experienced similar, did it escalate? Edit: obviously I don't plan on cheating on him, but I'm wondering how concerning these sorts of comments are in a marriage. Edit 2: I've put additional context in one of the comments, but I'm going to put it here too for new commenters, etc. Yes, his comment like this was concerning at the time he first made it, but I didn't really take it seriously. Since then, I've heard it so many times that it doesn't bother me anymore. Recently, there's been a bit of a development, and now I'm questioning everything, trying to work out if the man I thought I married was real. So, buckle up. This one's going to be a long one. I've left some of the finer details out for the sake of trying to streamline this, but let me know if anything is unclear in the comments. When I first met my husband on Hinge at the end of April 2022, he was insecure and controlling. About 4 weeks into the relationship, he discovered by going through my phone that I'd had a thing with someone like 2 weeks before I met him, and accused me of cheating on him. I'd stopped seeing the other guy, let's call him K, as soon as I'd met my husband in person, because I knew it was something I wanted to pursue, but at the same time I was telling husband I wasn't ready for a relationship, that we needed to take things slowly, that I wasn't his girlfriend. Apparently this didn't matter because when he found out I'd cheated, he flipped out, threatened to kill himself, threatened me with violence I should be kicking your teeth in, and overall made my life a misery. I was scared to go to sleep because I worried that he would hurt himself while I was asleep, or go through my phone and find things from before I met him to start worrying about. If he did, I'd get woken up asking who I'd sent this or that picture to like a month or two before he and I even started talking. I was told it was gross and that I needed to cut every guy in my life off. I did what he asked because I loved him, and because I was scared if I broke it off that he would do something really rash. 6 months later, I was tired of having my location tracked everywhere I went. I was tired of him leaning on me for emotional support, so I tried to break things off. He sat there and cried and told me he would change, and he wouldn't be the same person again. I asked him to leave the house, and he said he would go sleep in his car. His brother lives a 5-minute drive from us. I said I wasn't going to let him sleep in his car, so I let him stay in the house on the couch on the understanding that he would not come into the bedroom. I woke up at 2 a.m. or so with him standing over me, telling me he was looking for something I'd already given him. I suspect he wanted to look through my phone again. I came home from work the next day to find a list of homeless shelters on a piece of paper beside his bed. I figured that I was supposed to see this and feel bad for him. The next day he promised to change, so I gave him a chance to make things right. He promised me he would be the man I deserved, treat me like a princess. Everything's been mostly good since then. He seemed perfect. I thought I'd found my soulmate. Except for one night about a month ago when I was using his phone and I needed to go back in his browser history to find something. I found a load of links to male escort listings on Locanto, and then a load of gay porn he'd searched specifically for, like young hot cock and cute young guy jerking off. When I asked him about it, at first he pretended he had no idea what I was talking about. He then said I don't even know what that was for, and then he told me that he was scared because his DT was unresponsive, that he was trying to handle himself to pics videos of me US, and it wouldn't get hard. He then said he freaked out and that was his reaction to see if it did anything. He said he started with the listings and then went to porn, had a flick through and then closed it when it didn't do anything for him. I said I didn't understand, because we had made love the day before and it seemed to work fine then, and that he had a doctor's appointment the next day, so he could have asked about it then. I asked him if he had tried gay porn before, and he said yes, when he was much younger, and that it didn't do anything for him. I said I was struggling to understand how he would turn to this suddenly if he's never been interested before. He ended up getting really defensive and screaming at me that he was freaking out and I can't believe you think I'm gay. I said it was no problem if he was bi or bi-curious, I'm bi, but that the escort listings were a massive concern to me, and he knew how I would have felt about it. I ended up speaking to someone close to him about it, and then it came out of the bag that something he'd told me at the start of our relationship was a complete fabrication. He'd told me that the car accident he was in when he was 18/19 was a suicide attempt. Turns out this was a lie, and that there was someone else in the car with him. I told him I didn't understand why he would lie about that, and he was super evasive and defensive. At the same time, I questioned him about a few other things that had been weird throughout our relationship, and it turned out that they were all lies too. Throughout our relationship, he's told me how much he values our openness and honesty, and how he could never lie to me, even if it was a white lie. I told him that all of these things being untrue was extra concerning, considering he was always so vocal about the importance of honesty and trust with your partner. I told him that I was struggling to trust him at this point and asked him if there was anything else he had lied to me about or hidden from me throughout our relationship. Told him it was a lie amnesty and that I just wanted everything else out on the table so we could go ahead with a clean slate and a bit of therapy. This whole time he was being super evasive and was telling me that there was nothing else he'd ever hidden or lied to me about, that he was going to be completely honest from now on, and that I knew everything now. I still didn't believe him, so he offered me his phone and Google account and told me to put my mind at rest. Turns out he didn't clean up as well as he had thought, because I discovered. No, it wasn't the only time he'd looked at escort listings since we've been together. A few months prior, he'd Googled his ex, then searched for her name and nudes, and then immediately watched porn and jerked off. The day after my birthday last year, he had been searching for booty call apps. Right before we met, when I was the gross one for flirting with a guy that he'd been signing up to no less than 15 hookup apps with names like Sex Finder and Aussie MILFs and One Night Friend. He'd signed up to my transgender date the night before we met in person after talking for a week and telling me he was smitten with me and couldn't wait to meet me. 4 weeks before we met, he was swapping pics with men and talking about what he wanted to do to them, whilst telling them he likes trans femboy stuff, also liking a lot of pre-op MTF pics on the same site. He'd had some sort of contact with an escort previously. Her email address was in his contacts but couldn't tell me when or what for. That even though he told me repeatedly how he didn't see the appeal of OnlyFans sex workers, that he was still searching them more than he ever admitted to watching porn. He later admitted that he didn't realize that Google still saves your searches even if you clear your browser history. I tried to understand why he had done these things, whilst also feeling like the person he'd always portrayed himself as was a complete fabrication. When I asked him about searching for nudes of his ex, he immediately flew into a rage, no build-up, just straight to 10/10 fury. He screamed at me that he would never ever do that he would admit to anything else but not that. He completely lost his mind. I've never seen anyone react in that way before. Everything else he said he just didn't remember. A few days later, I asked him to go stay with family for a bit, so we could clear our heads. A few days later, I decided that I couldn't ever get over the betrayal that I'd felt, that I felt like I'd married a lie, and that more importantly, the trust was gone. About a week later, he told me he wanted to come home so he could return to work his family lives 2 hours away. I told him he could stay in the house as long as he respected that we were still separated, and that I didn't want him coming home and pretending like everything was back on track. He said he totally understood. So far it's not been like that, and he talks about when we do stuff and talking about how much he loves me, and it's kinda sent me back in time 2 weeks. I don't know how I feel and I don't know what to do. He's since admitted to everything even though he said he would never do some of those things and his excuses reasons just don't gel. He's also admitted he's got a problem with lying and that he doesn't know why he does it. I told him that I hate that I even felt like I needed to second-guess him and that I do not want to be the kind of wife who looks through her husband's phone. Part of me is hopeful that with enough counseling, we can make this work, but the rest of me fears that now the trust is gone, the relationship is done. Maybe I just don't love or respect myself enough to see how fucked this really is. Maybe I'm gaslighting myself. Husband said he would kill me if I cheated on him multiple times. I didn't take it seriously, but I've since discovered he's been looking at male escort listings, searching for his ex's nudes and compulsively lying.